We begin today at the Gemara at the bottom of Daf Memtes Amud Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom of the Amud, where it says Omar Abaye Toshima. So the Gemara here is continuing to a statement that Mar Zutra said. Mar Zutra said in the name of Rav Nachman that the halacha that we learned in the Mishnah regarding a Isha collecting a ksubah, that she can collect only ziburis, the lowest quality of a property. That's only if she's collecting from the Yisayim, if the husband passed away. But if she's collecting from the husband himself, then she's no less than a Bal Chayv, any person that the loan is owed to, and she can collect from Baininus. So here the Gemara asks a very strong question from what it said in the Mishnah, in the beginning of this Pedic. So Abaye says, Toshima, let's come in here. What does it say in the Mishnah? So the Mishnah said the following list. Hani Zokin Shamalem Be'idis. People that are collecting payment for damages, they collect from Idis. Ubal Chayv, a person that's collecting a loan, Be'baininus, he collects from Baininus. Uksubas Isha Be'ziburis. And Iksuba, Isha collects only from Ziburis. That's what it said in our Mishnah. So what is our Mishnah talking about? Miman. Who are all these payments being collected from? If we would say that the pshat in our Mishnah is that it's all in a case where the person that caused the damage, the person that borrowed the money, the person that owes the ksubah, they passed away, and the money is being collected from the Yisayim. So then you can't make such a distinction, B'chla. You can't divide it into three categories. My area ksubas isha. Why are you saying only the ksubah of the isha collects from ziburis? Afila kol hani nami. All of them should collect only from ziburis, because the Mishnah brings the takana that whenever you collect from Yisayim, regardless of the situation, you collect only ziburis. Elo lav minei. So you must say that the Mishnah here is speaking about when these payments are being collected from the person himself. And it means also regarding the ksubah, that the ksubah is being collected from the husband himself. And what does the Mishnah say? That you collect ziburis. Not like Mar Zutra that says that when you collect from the husband himself, you collect Baininus. So it's a very clear ayah against Mar Zutra. Amar Ravacha bar Yaakov. So Ravacha bar Yaakov answers, Hacha b'may askinon, that you can say, what is our Mishnah speaking about? Our Mishnah is not speaking about a regular case where you're collecting the loan from the person himself. Okay, so as Rashi explains, what the Gemara is about to say over here is that you can still say, like Mar Zutra said, that the ksubah of a isha, when you are actually collecting from the husband himself, you would collect Baininus. But that the Mishnah over here is not speaking about the entire Mishnah. All three cases, the Nezikin, the Bal Chayv, and the ksubah, is not speaking in a case where you're collecting from the person himself. So rather, what is it speaking about? Kogain shenasa orev leniske benoi. The case over here is that a father is an orev for his son. The father took upon himself to be an orev. He's a guarantor to pay for his son. If his son passes away, the father says, I'm going to pay for him. Okay, so before I read the Hemshech the Gemara over here, the Gemara is going to go into a little subject over here to explain this concept of an orev. So first of all, you have to understand the idea of an orev is a chiddush. Orev b'pashtus means that a person comes and says that if this person doesn't pay the money that he owes, I guarantee and I will pay in his place. Now, there's two kinds of arevim. There's what's called an arev, a regular arev, and that is in the case where the person himself doesn't pay. So then you go to the guarantor to pay for him. And then there's what's called an arev kablan. An arev kablan is a person that says, give him the money and I will pay. Meaning you can come and collect from him, even if, or from the arev that is, even if the person himself has money, but you can go directly to the arev kablan to get paid for this. Now the fact that when an arev accepts upon himself to pay, that he becomes obligated to pay, it's a chiddush, because there's no real kinyan here. What's really obligating him? It's just words. He says, I will pay. So but just because he says so, he becomes obligated to pay. Why? There's no proper kinyan for this. So the Gemara discusses this in Baba Basra, and there the Gemara says that the arev, it's not stam words, because when the arev is saying this, the malva is giving money. There's something happening based on his words. So he has a certain hana, that his words are being listened to. So therefore his words are significant. But this koyach, to accept upon yourself arevos, as we'll see here in the continuation of the Gemara, not always does his words mean anything. Not always do his words take effect. Okay, that's the Hagdom here that's negated to understand our Gemara. Okay, so now what the Gemara is explaining over here is, in the Mishnah, when it speaks about these three modes of payment, whether Nezikin, whether Bal Chayv, or whether Ksubeh, we're not talking about this money being collected from the Yisayim, because then, in all cases, you would collect from Ziburis. On the other hand, in order to answer Mazutra's opinion, we're not talking about a case where the money is being collected from the person himself, from the husband himself, because then the ksubah would not get ziburis. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a orev. So the father said that he's going to be a orev l'niske b'noi, that if my son passes away, I'll pay the damages of my son. And the same thing, the bal choiv b'noi, if my son passes away, I'll pay all the loans. And also if my son passes away, I am the orev to pay the ksubah for my daughter-in-law. So therefore, our mission over here is saying the halacha as follows: V'hai kidine, v'hai kidine. When it comes to the halacha of the nizikin and the balchayv, the father, which is the orev, has to pay what level of property? The same like the son himself would have to pay. What's an orev? An orev has to always pay on the same level as the person himself that owes the money. So therefore, by the nesikin, since the son himself would have to pay from idis, so the father that's an orev is accepting upon himself to pay that idis. And the same thing also with the balchayv. The son would pay beininis, so the father, which is the orev, would pay beininis, as the Gemara explains it. But this halacha, hai kidine, the Gemara now will explain, this only applies to nezikin and to a balchayv. But when it comes to the ksubah, over here, the father will not have to pay on the same level that his son himself would have to pay if he is alive. What's the difference? So the Gemara explains, nezikin or balchayv, when it comes to the payment of the damages or the payment of a loan, the mechayim govo. This is a kind of payment that the son, if he was alive, he would pay himself. He has to pay this when he's alive. So now the son passed away, so the father that's taking the place of the son and paying for him, ki magbi, when you collect from the father, ki mechayim magbi. So you collect from the father the same level of a property that the son would pay himself if he was alive and he would have to pay. However, when it comes to the ksubah is only collected when the son passes away. That's what the father accepted. The arevus of the father was if the son passes away. We're not talking of here the arevus if the son divorces his wife. The arevus of the father was if the son passes away, then I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to give the ksubah. So the whole payment of the ksubah only begins when the son passes away. After the son passes away, if the father wouldn't take the responsibility for this, who would you collect the ksubah from? Miyasmi, you would collect it from the Yisayimim. So therefore, from the Yisayimim, you could only collect ziburis. So iyonami kimagbi kalachem misa magbi. So when you collect from the father that's the guarantor for this, you could only collect from him like the standard that you collect achamisa, which is only ziburis. So therefore, that's the pshat in our Mishnah. When our Mishnah says you collect ziburis, it's speaking about this case of a orev. If the son was alive, you would still collect from beininis, but because it's only an orev, so therefore you collect from ziburis like it would be if you would collect from the Yisayimim. That's the pshat in our Mishnah.
Which is likely to be a lot less.
Which is only the ziburis, correct? Okay, so the Gemara now asks on this that the whole point of the answer here is that we're talking about an orev. For the tape, clay, but the Gemara, the question on this is that the orev, the ksubah, loy mishtabit. By a ksubah, a revus for a ksubah does not take effect. If you come and say, you see, a person is getting married to his wife and she's concerned, she doesn't know if the husband can afford to pay the ksubah, and a person comes along and says, I'm an orev for this isha. The halacha is, the words he says is empty words. We don't accept it for anything. And the reason is because, why is he saying this? The Gemara will soon say the svara. The reason he's saying this is because he wants them to get married. But he's not really taking proper responsibility to give the money for this ksubah. And besides that, it's not the pshat that the husband has to pay for something that the isha actually lent him and he has to pay back. And I mentioned before, usually regarding an orev, the very fact that someone is ready to give money based on your guarantee has value in the marketplace. In business, if someone comes along and says, I guarantee, and you're ready to give money for that, what does that mean? Your word is powerful. You're a trusted person in business. So that's the hana that the arevus is based on, that it takes effect. But by a ksubah, there's no money transaction over here. It's an obligation that a husband has to give to his wife. So therefore, there's an opinion that says that an orev by a ksubah does not take effect, b'chlal. I don't even know if it's a machlokes about this. It could be everybody agrees to this. That by a ksubah, a person comes and says that I'll be orev, it's garnished. So how can we say the case over here is that the father takes upon himself this arevus? So the Gemara answers, we're not talking here about a regular orev. it's a stronger Arevis. Bekablon. We're talking about an Arev Kablon. Arev Kablon is not stam a person that says, if this person won't be able to pay, then I will pay. That kind of Arevos by Ksuba does not take effect. But Arev Kablon, a person's coming and saying, give him money because I'm taking care of this. You can come directly to me. Arev Kablon, this kind of Arevos does take effect by Ksuba. And Rashi explains that by this Arev Kablon, it actually only works if there's money that changes hands over here. And usually by Ksuba, there is no money that changes hands. So therefore Rashi explains what had to have happened over here is that the husband gave already a certain payment for the Isha, for the Ksuba from before. He gave her metaltal and he gave her something as a payment. Now the Isha gave it back. And now the father here, which is the Arev, tells the Isha that you can give it back to the husband. Even though the husband paid you already the money for the Ksuba, give it back to him. Because I'm guaranteeing if you give it to him, if he's not going to give it back to you in the right time, he's going to die, I'm going to pay you. There has to be money that changes hands over here in order for this kablonis to take effect. Okay, but the point over here is we're not talking about a regular Arev, we're talking about Arev Kablan, so it could take effect by a Ksuba. So the Gemara asks on this, even this is also a machlokes if this level of Arevis takes effect. We could say that we're talking about this Arev Kablon according to the opinion that says Kablon afagav the lesle nichsi leloive, that to be a Arev Kablon, when you take your responsibility that I'm going to pay, and you can come to me even if the loive himself has money. But this only takes effect that this does take effect afagav the lesle nichsi leloive. Mishtabit, even if the loiva has no money, you see now that the loiva has no place to afford, he has no properties, no properties to pay. And the Arev Kablan that takes responsibility, this takes effect. So we could say that over here, the father took upon himself to be a Kablan. That when there's this kablonis that you took upon yourself to be a kablan take effect, only if you see that the person that you're there to guarantee has a property of his own, then the shibud takes effect, the arevis takes effect. But if not, loy mishtabed, it does not take effect. So what are you going to say regarding our case? Okay, so there's 2 points over here that Rashi explains in order to understand the Gemara's question. Number one, the svar of the Gemara is, again, this whole concept of arevus. We have to be sure that the words of an arev are not just empty words. When he accepts upon himself this to guarantee, it's real. So the mandama that says that only islay is that if you see that this person has money of his own, so you're sort of relying on the fact that he is going to pay this loan that he borrows. So therefore, when you say that I'm taking upon myself to pay, we can rely that you mean it, that it's real. Why? Because you're expecting that he's going to pay in the event that he won't, so you're taking it upon yourself. But if we see that this person that's borrowing the money has no nechasim of his own, he has no properties of his own, and you're coming and saying, I'm guaranteeing him. Since you see he has no money of his own, we look at your words as meaningless words. Because why should you want to pay someone else's loan? And you see he has no properties of his own. So it doesn't take effect, B'chlal. That's one point of here. Another point of here is Rashi explains that over here, the Gemara right now understands that what we're talking about is the father sees that his son has no money, B'chlal. That's why the father is taking responsibility for his son. Whether for the damages, whether for a chayiv, whether for the ksuba, he's marrying off his son, and his son doesn't own a house, his son doesn't own any properties. That's the only reason why the father is taking responsibility for his son. So over here, if the father took responsibility, isn't the case that the son has no money of his own, and therefore the father is taking this responsibility. So what are we going to say? Okay, so but here the emphasis that we're talking over here about the Arev Kablan. So l'chayra Arev Kablan doesn't make a difference if the son has money, does not have. The whole idea of a Kablan is that you go directly to the person that took it upon himself. Okay, so this is something that Taisus discusses over here. And so the Mefarshim say, according to the way Rashi explains this Gemara, that even though usually an Arev Kablan, you can go directly to the Arev without going to the person that actually borrowed the money, but not by a Ksuba. Arevus by a Ksuba has less of a koyach than a regular Arevus. As I explained before, a Ksuba, there's no real money that anyone borrowed. It's just an obligation. It's a mitzvah for a chasana. So the Arevus by a Ksuba, even an Arev Kablan, you have to go first to the person that owes the money, which is the husband, and only then could you go to an Arev that guaranteed this. So therefore, if the person himself has no money, so then the Arev does not become a Shubit B'chlal. So the Gemara explains that it's not a question, B'chlal. Either I can tell you, but the case over here is that the son did have properties of his own. when the father accepted it upon himself to pay if he can't. But v'ishtaduf, what happened is the properties got destroyed, they got ruined from a hurricane or whatever it was. Or I can tell you that a father and a son is different. When a person accepts upon himself to pay for his son's ksube or something for his son, shibudeh mishabed nafshay. So the father is mishabed himself, even if he sees his son has nothing, and usually such a shibud of a arev does not take effect, but for a son, it's his own son, over here a father is ready to be mishabed himself to pay, even if his son has nothing of his own. Okay, now here the Gemara goes off on a side point to discuss details regarding this halacha of arev, and then we're going to come back to the main halacha we're discussing over here, the payment of a ksubah, Marzutri's halacha regarding the payment of a ksubah. So we learned the following halacha regarding an arev. Arev de ksubah, person that accepts upon himself to be a arev for a ksubah. Divrei hakoil loy mishtabed. Everybody agrees that when he accepts that, it's meaningless. And the reason is because there's no money that's being given out based on his words of arevus, so that he has no anah from this. His words are empty words. And also, the Gemara will soon say that it's inyan of a mitzvah. You're just doing it for the purpose of a mitzvah. So you want this woman to get married, so you're saying, yeah, I will guarantee, but you really don't mean it. So arev by ksubah is nothing. Kablon de balchayv. Now, on the other extreme, if a person is actually borrowing money, and you come and say, not only am I going to be a arev in the event that you don't have what to pay, but I'm a kablon, that it's as if I got the money, I'm telling this person, give him money because I come directly to me to pay. So a kablon, you're accepting upon yourself in a very strong way by a balchayv divrei kol mishtabed. Over there, everybody agrees that the shibud that you took upon yourself will take effect. Arev de balchayv, but the shaila is when you have a arev by a balchayv, so you're taking upon yourself to pay in the event that this balchayv will not pay. And the kablon de ksubah, on the other hand, by a ksubah, where you didn't take upon yourself like a regular arev, but you said, come to me directly, I want to pay the ksubah, so it's a stronger acceptance. So the point of here is that by the balchayv, so there's a big mila by a balchayv because money is being put out based on your words. So the acceptance is more significant, but you're only accepting it as a arev in case he won't pay. So in that sense, it's a weaker acceptance. The kablon by the ksubah, on one hand, there's a certain chesaron over here because there's no money that's being put out based on your words, so there's no significance to your words. On the other hand, you're a kablon, you're accepting upon yourself very strongly. You can come directly to me. So in these two cases, pligi. There's a machlokes if this arevus takes effect. One opinion says, Afagav the lesle nichsi leloive, that these kinds of acceptance of arevus, even if the loive had no money in his possession when you accepted this, mishtabit, the shibud, the arevus takes effect. But there's another opinion that says he islay mishtabit. If the balchayv or the husband himself has money, then your arevus takes effect. But he lesle, if he had no money of his own, loy mishtabit, then your arevus you accepted upon yourself did not take effect, because again we look at it as being just empty words. You didn't really mean it serious. You see this guy has no money on his own. You stop jumping in and saying I'm going to pay. You didn't really mean it. But the hilchas, the halacha regarding the halacha of arev is the kulu, and all of them, afagav the lesle, even if this person has no money of his own, mishtabed, the shibud does take effect. Bar, besides, mi arev the ksubah. If a person is an arev for a ksubah, so then if you see that the husband has no properties of his own, then your arev for the ksubah is meaningless. Your words are meaningless. Why? The afagav, the islay, again, sorry, this is connected again. Bar me arev the ksubah, the afagav the islay. Even if you see that the husband does have money, not only if he doesn't, even if you see that the husband himself has properties of his own, an arev for a ksubah loy mishtabed, still the arevus is meaningless. Why? My time, and here the Gemara brings the svara that there's two things. First of all, mitzvah hu avad. You're saying this only because you want this woman to get married. It's a mitzvah, but you're not doing it really because you're accepting upon yourself to pray. And another thing, v'loy midi chasra. And also over here, there's no money that's being put out based on your words. So your words that you're saying, you don't get any hana that your words are being listened to, that money's being put out of here. So therefore your words are meaningless. So therefore the maskana is arevus by ksubah has no koyach. Okay, going back now to the ikisugi here, which is Mazutra. Mazutra said that the ksubah of a isha, she gets baininess. Only from Yisayimim do you get ziburis. Amar Ravina, so Ravina says regarding that, Toshama, Meikara de tekantin. Let's look at the source of this whole entire takana. What's the reason for the takana? So it said before in the Braise that the reason why by a ksubah you only have to pay ziburis, it's because yaser mimasha ish reitza lisa isha, more than the desire of a man to get married to his wife, reitza isha, that is reitza linase. The woman, she has a greater desire to get married, and therefore, even if she knows that a ksubah will be only ziburis, she's ready to accept that. She has a desire to get married, so we don't have to give her more than this. That was the whole reason for the takana in the first place, why it's only ziburis. Now, if you're going to say that it's only from Yisaimim that you collect from Ziburis, so Haimishum de Yasmihu. So over there, it's not a special takana for a ksubah that because we know that she's ready to accept this because she wants to get married. This is because it's Yisaimim. And Yisaimim you always collect from Ziburis. We see clearly from the Lashon of the Braise that Chachamim had a certain rationale specifically regarding a ksubah that we're going to give her only from Ziburis. So that has to be not from Yisayim, that has to be even when she's collecting from the husband himself. So therefore, to Yufte the Marzutra, this refutes what Marzutra said, that from the husband she gets Baininis. To Yufte, so this is a refutation of this halacha of Marzutra. Talk to Gemara weiter here, another halacha that Marzutra said in the name of Rav Nachman. Oma Marzutra berei de Rav Nachman, mishmei de Rav Nachman. So Marzutra is the son of Rav Nachman. So he said in the name of his father, Shtar choiv ha'yetza la Yisayim. If you have a shtar choiv that is coming out on Yisaimim that their father borrowed money, even if it's written in this shtar a very clear agreement regarding this loan, shvach, that the money collected for this loan is going to be from the best of the properties, even though usually for a loan you only collect from Baininis, but this shtar, it's written in it clearly that the deal was that you're going to collect from the best properties. But nevertheless, ain't a goy ve'elam Buddhist. But if now the loan is being collected from Yisaimim, then you only get the worst properties. Just like the halachas by Yisaimim, always it doesn't change. The fact that it says clearly that the deal was idis doesn't matter. Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, I'll prove to you that this is true. Teida, the balchayv dine bebeininis, because always every loan you get to collect from beininis. Umiyasmi buziburis. But if you're collecting a loan from Yisaimim, you don't get the usual level of property. You always get ziburis. So the same thing over here, even though the deal was to get from Idis, nevertheless, by Yisaimim, you don't get that. You only get from Ziburis. Oh, Malay Rava, so Rava argues with this, and Rava said, Hachi hashta. How could you compare to that? B'chayv dinei mid'iraisa b'ziburis. The truth is, by every balchayv, by every loan, minat teire, you only have the right to collect from Ziburis. Kid'ula, as Ula explained, the Ula said, where do you see in the teire that a balchayv only gets Ziburis? Because the pasuk says, and this is where the pasuk is describing the halachas with a mashkin, and it says, "Bachutz tamay." When you come to take a mashkin from a borrower, you stand outside, and and this person that you borrowed money from, he brings you out the mashkin. Why is the pasuk using this lashon of bachutz tamay? It's saying as follows: Ma darka shalish lahitzi pachash bekelim. The nature of a person is that he brings out the least quality. If he has to give a mashkin, what is he going to give? His most expensive dishes, the most expensive thing he has. He gives something that he knows that is not so important for him. So he gives the cheapest. So too, by every time you come to collect from a balchayv, you only have the right to collect from ziburis. That's what you see in the pasuk. So that's minat Torah. What's the reason why? They said, Chachamim said that a balchayv could collect from beininis. So this is Chachamim in Satura this. Not to lock the door for people that want to borrow money. If a lender knows that he could only collect from Ziburis, he's not going to ever want to lend anyone money. So it's a takana midrabanan. Now the gabe yasmi, so therefore we can understand that now when you collect from Yisaimim, oikmu arabanan adayraisa. Here the Chachamim said we go back to the halachim and atayra that you could only collect from Ziburis. So we understand why by Yisaimim you could say so. But Elahacha, over here, the case we're talking about, when there's a specific deal in the shtar that you're going to collect from shvach, from idis, kivin the dine midayraisa bidis. Over here, minatayra, you have to pay idis. That's the deal you made. Afilim yasmi nami bidis. So Rava says, in such a case, even though usually from Yisaimim you collect only from ziburis, but over here, minatayra, you have to pay idis. That doesn't change. So you're going to have to collect. You have the koyach to collect even from the Yisaimim from idis. Okay, so we have here a machlokes between Abaye and Rava, or Marzutra and Rava. When you're collecting from Yisaimim, in a case where it's a clear deal that it was written in the shtar that you have the right to collect from idis, do you take idis like it says in the shtar, or do you still take only from ziburis? So the Gemara asks on Rava's opinion, Vatani Avram Chuzah. This is a very interesting name, Avram Chuzah. Some say that it's instead of Avram Chuzah, Avram. It's not usually supposed to give a name of Avraham. It's supposed to be Avimi from Chuzah. Okay, so he said, that you only can collect from Yisayimim Ziburis. And then he added, Vafilahain Nizakin. And even if it's a payment for damages, still, from Yisayimim, you only get Ziburis. So the Gemara says, what's the story with Nizakin? Nizakin dinan midayraisa b'idis. By Nizakin minatayre, they collected this. That's what the pasuk says, meitav. And nevertheless, when you collect from Yisayimim, you get Ziburis. So the same thing over here, when you have a shtar, and it clearly says shvach, and it's minatayre that you have to get paid idis, but nevertheless, by Yisayimim, you should get Ziburis. And says the Gemara, there's no rai from there. Hacha b'mayaskinon, what is that Braisa talking about? Kagain shehaisa idis denizik ki ziburis de mazik. The level of idis of the nizik is the same as the ziburis of the mazik. And therefore, minat Torah, what do you have to pay? The mazik only has to give from his ziburis. But Rabbi Shmuel, like we learned before, that Rabbi Shmuel's opinion is the amma midayraisa mid the nizik shamina. The standard of the idis is measured by the way it is for the nizik. And therefore, again, the mazik will only have to give his ziburis. But the fact that the mazik will have to pay his idis, his very best, on his standard, not only on the standard of the nizik, that's only a takana b'derabbanan. So therefore, by Yisayimim, we put it back to the way the halacha is minatayra, that he only has to pay his ziburis. So the point is, we could still say that from Yisayimim, when you collect ziburis, that's only a case where minatayra, you only have a right to ziburis. But if minatayra, you had a right to idis, so then even from Yisayimim, you would collect from idis. But the Gemara Vayter asks from another Braise, but Eini, is this concept true? But Vatani Rabbi Eliezer Nifsa. Rabbi Eliezer Nifsa said as follows: Ein nefran min nichsi Yisayimim element ziburis. You get paid from Yisayimim only from ziburis, and then he added va'afilu hein idis, and even if it is idis. Now, what did he mean to say va'afilu hein idis? Ma yafilu hein idis. What did he mean to say by this addition afilu hein idis? Lav. Don't you think he meant to say this case that we're discussing? Afagav dichsiv idis b'shtarah. Even in a case where the shtar clearly says that he has the right to collect from idis, so now not Torah you could collect from idis, but nevertheless from Yisayimim you still only get ziburis. So this is clearly against what Rava said. So the Gemara answers, Loi, that's not what this Braisa meant. My idis, what does it mean over here when it said idis shafoi idis? What it means over here is that the idis got ruined, the idis got destroyed. That's the case over here when he said afilu hein idis means there was idis here, but the best property that he had got ruined. The Gemara brings the source of this, and this is something that Rava himself said in another place. The Amar Rava said, Hizik ziburis, if you damage someone's property, even if you damage his worst quality property, goyim an idis. But nevertheless, the halacha by nezikin is you collect from idis. Now shafoi idis, what happens if the idis that you had got destroyed? So now, so he can come and collect only from beinanis. So this halacha that he could collect only from beinanis is a halacha really midrabanan. Minat Torah, if you don't have idis to pay anymore to the nizik, so then you don't have to pay any idis and not beinanis. He can come and collect only from ziburis. The Torah says that if you have your idis, you have to pay that idis. But what happens if shafoy idis? Shafoy idis means the idis is removed, it's gone, it's destroyed. So then you can collect only from ziburis. But midrabanan, they allowed him to collect from the beinanis, right? But that's only midrabanan. So here, v'gabe yasmi, it's the same thing over here regarding this case. What happened over here is you made a deal with him that he could collect from idis. But what happened? Shafoy idis. The idis is not available anymore. So minat Torah, he could collect only from the ziburis. Once that deal, once that property is not available, he could only take from the worst quality. But so therefore, v'gabe yasmi akmur abanan adayraisa. So by the Yisayimim, Chachamim say that you could only get from the ziburis. True, if you would be collecting from the person himself that you made this deal with, you would be allowed to take from beinanis. If you can, midrabanan, there's a takana by a loan that you take from beinanis. But minat Torah, if the person is not alive, you're collecting from Yisayimim, so then you go back to the halacha minat Torah that when the best which was the deal, is not available, you could take only from Ziburis. So that's all it meant over here. So therefore, there's no raya against the Rav over here. Okay, going back to another halacha, the Mishnah said, that when you collect from Yisaimim, this halacha we were just discussing, so you only collect from Ziburis. Rav Achta Barami asked about this. Yisaimim Shomer, when it says that you're collecting from Yisaimim, only Ziburis. Ketanim, does it mean Yisaimim that are Ketanim? Or Yafilah Gedailim? Or this means this is even Yisaimim that are Gedailim? And the Gemara explains the Shaila. Do I say, Takantihi the Ovad Rabbanon Gabi Yasmi? This is a takana that Chachamim made for the purpose of these Yisaimim. And Lektanim Ovad Rabbanon. This is a takana that Chachamim made for these Yisaimim. And so, in other words, the Chachamim are making a takana for these Ketanim. The Ketanim can't take care of themselves. So usually, the Ketanim, if they would have to pay a damage, so they would have to pay Idis. What would the Ketanim have to do? They'll have to sell their property of Ziburis and make sure that they have Idis and then pay Idis. But they're Ketanim, they can't take care of themselves. So therefore we allow them to pay the Ziburis and let the person that collected the Ziburis handle it on his own. If he wants to sell it and then get Idis for it, he's going to have to be Matriach. So it's all for the purpose of Ketanim, because they can't take care of themselves. So therefore, this does not apply to the Gedailim. The Gedailim loy over the Rabbanan. Or no, maybe this is not a special takana for Ketanim. Mishom de le masek adaite de malve de mis loive v'nofli nichsi kame yasmi. What's bechlal the whole reason regarding every loan that you could collect from Beininis and not only from Ziburis, as we said before, shalitinol delis b'fnei loivim. We don't want that people should refrain from lending money thinking that I'm only going to get paid from Ziburis. So therefore that whole idea, that whole takana does not apply by Yisaimim. Again, why? Because the Malva does not think that the loiva that he's collecting money from will die, and now he's going to have to collect from the Yisaimim. The Havale Noel Delis, and therefore he's not going to want to lend money. So since the whole takana midirabanan, there's no reason for that takana to apply by Yisaimim, so therefore we go back to the din min atayra, and the din min atayra is benigeya to a loan that you get paid from Ziburis, and that applies even to Gedailim, not only to Ketanim. It's not a special takana. Adarabah, but the point here is you go back to the din min atayra because a special takana by a regular chayiv does not apply when it's from Yisaimim. Tashamas, the Gemara brings a raya from a Braisa, the Tani Abba Kishisha. The Braisa says, Yisaimim Sha'amru. When it says the halacha of collecting from Yisaimim, Gedailim. It means even from Yisaimim that are Gedailim. Ve'ein tzarech lein b'Ketanim. And needless to say that the same would apply by Ketanim. So we clearly see that it's by Gedailim and Ketanim. What the Gemara asks on this, how do you know that Braisa is talking about this halacha of collecting Ziburis? Maybe that Braisa is talking about a different halacha. It's coming to say the halacha of collecting with Yisaimim that you must make a shvuah. What's this halacha? So Rashi brings it, the Gemara in Shvuahs that says, whenever you collect from Yisaimim, you must make a shvuah that I know for a fact that my father did not get paid, that your father did not pay this loan. Why? Because when it comes to collecting a loan, the halacha is any person you collect a loan from, you could always say, "Ishtabali d'loi praticha," swear for me that I did not pay you. So when you collect from Yisaimim, so Bezdin will say that will tie for the Yisaimim, you have to swear before you collect from the Yisaimim. Maybe if the father was alive, he would demand this shvuah. So maybe this Braisa here is talking about that halacha, to collect with a shvuah. And therefore, this applies to Gedailim and Ketanim. And the Gemara explains why Gabi this there's no distinction. Again, because when it comes to paying a loan, even a gadol regarding this loan of his father, he's like a cotton. He doesn't know if the father paid the loan, if the father did not pay the loan. But maybe regarding this halacha of collecting from Ziburis and not from Beininis, maybe that's a special takana just for the Yisaimim and Ketanim and not for the Gedailim. But the Gemara concludes, even though we don't have a clear eye from this Braisa, but nevertheless, for Hilchasa, the halacha is Yisaimim Sha'amru. When it says here that the Yisaimim collect from Ziburis, this is Gedailim, Ve'ein tzarech lein b'Ketanim, it's Gedailim and the Ketanim, makes no difference, Bein l'Shvuah, whether for this halacha that you must make a Shvuah before you collect, and Bein l'Ziburis, and also for the halacha that you could only collect from Ziburis. Another halacha said in the Mishnah, Ein Ephraim, min chasim mishubadim, b'makim sheyesh b'nei chayden. You cannot collect from the chasim mishubadim, which is properties that this person doesn't have in his possession anymore. He sold them off. You can't collect from those buyers if this person, this lender, or this borrower rather, still has money in his possession, which is called b'nei chayden. That's a takana b'derabanan. Okay, so the Gemara has a shaila about this. Boyer of achter bebarami. So he asked the shaila b'matonehech. What would be the halacha if you gave properties as a matana? Does the same halacha apply that you can't go to that person that you gave it as a gift to if you still have other properties in your possession? Takantu the avad rabbana mishum seida de lekuchais. Is this halacha that you shouldn't go to the buyer a special takana because of the loss of the lekuchais, and that is because the lekuchais are paying money. So since they're spending money on this, Chachamim made a special takana not to collect from the lekeach when you still have properties in your possession. Alo matana, the lekeb say that the lekuchis loy, but when it comes to a matana, since there's no loss involved in this, it's just a gift, so then it doesn't apply. I can go to the person that got the gift and take a property from him, even though the giver of the gift still has a property in his possession. Or maybe I could say matana nami, that when it comes to a gift as well, it's the same thing. That you don't take it away from the person that got this property if they're still b'nei chayrin. Why? Ilav the isle hanoah minei, because even by a gift, the nature of things is that if not for the fact that this person that you gave the gift to gave you some benefit, leyav lematana, you wouldn't have given him a gift. Ve'ilkach keep say that the lekuchas dami. It's sort of similar to a certain loss that there is by a lekucha. It's just like a lekucha is spending money. The person that got the gift also spent some effort to get this gift, to earn this gift in some way. So therefore, it's not right to confiscate it from him if the loiva himself has properties in his possession. That's the shaila. It became his though, yeah, but it was given for free though. The idea of matan is he didn't pay for it. So the question is, if you don't pay and you get it as a gift, is it equivalent to a lekeach because you earned it in some way? Or no, you just got it as a gift, so therefore Chachamim didn't make a takana for you that it shouldn't be confiscated from you. I'll bring you a raya from here. It says, person that's passing away, and before he passes away, so there's a tzava, and he says, Tunu masayim zuz leplaini, give 200 zuz to this person. So simply, it seems like we're talking about a gift there. Give 200 zuz to this person, and the gimel meis leplaini, give 300 zuz to another person, and the dal meis leplaini, and give 400 zuz to a third individual. 3 different gifts here. So we do not say that kol hakaydim b'shtar zacha, that the one that he told to first, that he wrote a star, give him, and then he wrote a second star to him, and then third to a third person. We're not going to say that the one that got the star first is going to be zeicha first. It does not go in order. Lefichach yatsa alav shtar chayiv goyvim mikulan. If there's a shtar chayiv, if someone takes out a shtar chayiv that he owes them money, he has to collect from all of them equally. Okay, so what the Bryce over here is saying is that when you're giving a gift to 3 people, so you're not giving the gift to him first and then to him second, to him third. If it was that way, so then let's say this person passes away and there isn't enough in his properties to give the gift to all 3 of them. So then, how would it work? Let the first one come and take first what is coming to him, and then only what's left over goes to the second. What's left over goes to the third. But that's not what this person meant over here. This person meant to give a gift to all 3 of them. He just can't write it all at the same time. He just can't write it all together, but he meant to give a gift to all 3 of them at the same time. So if there's properties that's not enough for all 3 of them to collect, so each one of them will get the percentage-wise of what he was given. They'll all get equally. So now if there's a chayiv that this person that passed away owes money, which one of them has to pay this chayiv? So all of them are going to have to pay equally their percent of what they got, a gift from this person that owed the money. They're all going to have to chip in to pay equally for this chayiv. Aval, however, if he specified very clearly, if he says, Tanu Masayim Zuz Leplaini, give a gift 200 zuz for this person, and then Va'acharav Leplaini, he said clearly, after him comes the second person, and Va'acharav Leplaini, and then afterwards comes a third individual. So then, we say, Kol HaKaidim B'shtar Zacha, when each one of them come to collect this gift that this person said to give them, so the one that was said first, he comes to collect first, and the second person could only take what's left. If there's nothing left, he's not going to get anything. And also, if there's money now that's owed to someone from these properties, you could only collect from the last person. And if the last person doesn't have enough, then only then could you take from the person before him. And if his properties are still not enough to collect the loan, then you can go to the very first person to collect. That's what it says here in this brayse. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to prove from this brayse. Before I read the Gemara inside, what's the point of this halacha that you could take only from b'nei chayrin and you cannot take from mishabadim, from the properties that were already sold off? The main chiddush over here is a bal chayv has a right to collect from beinanis, right? So, but even in a case where the mishubadim is beinanis and the b'nei chayrim, which is still in the possession of the loive, is just ziburis. So the bal chayv comes and says, I don't want to take this ziburis. My right is to collect from beinanis. Doesn't matter, but you still take only from the b'nei chayrim, which is ziburis. Okay, so now the Gemara says over here in this brayse, va'afal gav the kama beinanis. It seems like what the brayse is saying over here is in the seifa of this brayse, when we say that you only go to the last person, that means even if the first person that got this gift of this property, he got the beinanis. Beinanis is usually what a bal chayv could collect. Ubasra ziburis, the last person that got the gift, he only got a ziburis. Nevertheless, miziburis gavi, you could only collect from the ziburis, from the last property, and maybe beinanis like gavi. You can't collect from the beinanis. Why? Because by the time that the first person collected his gift from beinanis, the last person, that property was still b'nei chayrin. So therefore you could collect only from the ziburis, which is still b'nei chayrin. Shma mina. So what do I see from here? What is this brayse talking about? It seems like it's talking about a gift. That b'matane, even though it's talking about a gift, nami over the rabbanan tekante. Chachamim still apply their takane that you could only collect from the b'nei chayrim, which is ziburis, and not from the first person that got the gift, even though he has the beinanis. Says the Gemara, no, there's no raya from here. Hacha b'maya skina. This brayse is not talking about people that are getting this as a gift. B'bal chayv. It's talking about this person that passed away, and he's saying, give him money, give him money. It wasn't stam a gift. He's saying, give them money because I owe them money. That's what he's saying. And what's the brayse talking about? He says, give these people money, I owe them money, and then after he passes away, someone else comes with a shtar chayv and says, well, I was owed money before all you guys, and therefore I have to collect from your properties that you collected because my loan, the lien that I had from my loan, it comes before you. That's what this brayse is talking about. It's about chayv. So it's not talking about a gift b'chlal. But the language of the brayse is the person just simply said give. It sounds like it's a gift, and it says the Gemara tnu b'chayvi, even though it says tnu, but he meant to say give it as a gift. Wait a minute, but if this is a chayv over here, it's not stam a gift. Why does the brayse come and make a distinction whether the person said achrav or he did not say achrav? The lechsi shtare, the man kodem. Let's see very clearly in the shtar, the money that they are owed, who's the one that lent the money first? Who's the one that his loan is first? It shouldn't make a difference if he did say achrav, he did not say achrav. This is a loan. And it says the Gemara, the lek shtar, there is no shtar here. They don't have any shtar. You can't look into the shtar and see the date, who borrowed the money first and who borrowed the money second. But look in the language of the brayse. It says, the brayse says that the one that his shtar is first, he collects first. And says the Gemara, it doesn't mean the shtar of the loan. B'shtar pekadete. What it means is the shtar of the tzava, not the shtar of the loan. The shtar that this person says now, tnu, give for this loan, who did he write to? Did he write achrav? Who did he write first? That's what it's talking about. But the point is that it's talking about a loan, and since it's talking about a loan, it's no raya to what we're discussing over here regarding a matana. Or the Gemara says another answer. Afile matana nami. Even if this brayse is talking about a matana, v'loy kashya, and there's no question from this brayse. My goyvim in achrein. When it says here that you collect from the last person, so seemingly it's telling you that even by a matana, the takana of the chachamim applies that you have to go to the last person because that's the real b'nei chayrin that was left over. It doesn't mean that you go to the last person. It means a nifsad ela achrein. It means the last person will end up losing. Really, you can go to the first person to collect your chayiv, because the takana of the chachamim does not apply by matana. So you go to the first person to collect it. Elamai, that first person will then go to the last person and say, now you owe me because my field was confiscated. Since I was the one that got the gift first, why should I lose out and why shouldn't you lose out? And therefore the first person then goes and collects it from the last person because he's the one that was supposed to get first. But the bal chayv that came to collect, he collects really from the first person because he has the baininess. He has the one that the field that he owned, that he's owed. So therefore, there's no raya from Adarabah. It only means nifsad achron, but he really could collect from the first person. Or the Gemara says another pshat. The shavu kula dodi. The case over here is all of them have the same baininess. There's no reason to go to the first person as opposed to the last person. Why should you go to the first person? They all have the same bainis. The whole shaila over here was, the whole halacha of going to the Bnei Chayrin as opposed to the Mishabadim was, when the Bnei Chayrin is Ziburis and the Mishabadim is bainis, then there's a svara to say, I should have the right to go to the Mishabadim because that's what I'm owed as a Bal Chayiv. And here you have the Takan of the Chachamim that no, you can only go to the Ziburis because that's the Bnei Chayrim. But if it's all Baininus, for sure you can't go to the Mishabadim. You get the Baininus that's now Bnei Chayrim. So the same thing over here. This Braisa is talking about when it's all Baininus and therefore you go to the last person. There's no reason to go to the first person at all.